Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's Design Cinema. This is Feng Zhu speaking again, and yeah, so we're gonna get started and talk about silhouettes this week, especially being applied to man-made objects. Now, this technique will work for anything, for creatures, characters, even environments. It works because silhouettes, essentially, is about the narrowing down of a major form without having to worry about its internal details. And you can see here. Let's just jump right into this piece here. It's Photoshop, pretty big canvas, about 5,000–6,000 pixels wide, and just taking a default chalk brush and start nailing out the overall form of this spaceship. So obviously, while you're doing silhouettes, you still need to keep all the fundamentals in mind, such as perspective, foreshortening, all those kind of things that help you draw well. So in that case, in here, you don't see those things being applied because that's being done on the fly. But of course, silhouettes does not mean you blab a bunch of random black shapes on a surface unless you're going for something sort of, I guess, spontaneous. In this case, I'm not. I'm making a very structured object, so I cannot skip the fundamentals. So that's quite important. Because we do have, sometimes we run into situations where students are just, because they see black shapes, they start blabbing black objects. But the thing is not in perspective, it has no orientation to horizon, stuff like that. So you're never going to be able to save those drawings because they're just black blobs, right? So these, even though it's all solid black, there is definitely a consideration for example, horizon line in this case is all above the screen. These are 3/4 down view angles. So use the brush silhouettes. The reason why they work so well is because it allows you to see the entire form at once. You could delete and edit. You don't have to worry anything about drawing fine lines, fine details, anything to that level. The only thing I worry about is the entire major shape as a whole, and you're working with pretty much one value, only black. There's no settle values in here. So, and I'm doing all these at the same time on the same canvas on different layers. So there's only 3 layers right now, so this is the 3rd layer. So when I'm done with one, just move them out of the way and start another. So here I'm doing a alien scout or alien attack ship type of thing, and just like many of the demos I've done before, I like to do multiple versions of them so you don't end up with just one, right? One of anything doesn't look like concept art. You want the stuff to look like concept art, you do a big set of the thing. Like minimum is probably 2. So if you have 2 production paintings, two spaceships that are part of a set, part of the design, it shows clients that you are capable of reproducing the same design language multiple times, which is very, very important in production, right? Because if you draw one of anything, maybe you're only good at that one drawing, or maybe you got lucky. Can you reproduce it? So I like to do stuff in sets. So even in sets, you try to do variations. So for this attack ship, we have the kind of the fast, the medium, and the slow, which are typical good routines to follow when doing vehicle designs, right? So this last one is going to be a bigger one. So still filling in the black canvas, the black silhouette at this point. Orienting the page to see which one fit, and I'm pretty much ready at this point to start doing the basic value push, which will get started in a few seconds here, right? So right now it's all just page arrangement, so I could crop the canvas. The smaller the canvas, the faster this will work. I am painting this on my laptop still, so even this painting is starting to make my laptop struggle a little bit because the resolution is quite high. Yeah, 5,000–6,000 pixels, or maybe 7,000 pixels wide. So it's a pretty big image. All right, so final cleanup on each silhouette. So you guys saw earlier the layer group shows that there's only 3 layers. I group them in, and now I start a new layer on top of the black silhouette. Select that layer so you cannot paint outside of it, and start building some very, very basic values. And I'm using default Photoshop soft brush. Right, this is a default brush here. The point here is to capture the overall form. Just like painting a cylinder or a square or a cone or a sphere, you follow the same exact formulas. So in this case, these guys are cylindrical in overall form. So that means going to get a core right down the middle, highlights on the top, bounce from the bottom. So we just follow that and use the airbrush to get those things out, ignoring fine details. We do the fine details on the next pass. And working this way also ensures that you get everything done at about the same time, and at any stage of production, you can show these designs to a client or to whoever you're working with, so they understand what you're trying to do. Right? So here you can see I ignore all minor details. It's about the major form. So there's engine intakes, cockpits, wings. Those are things I concentrate on. Right? Ignore little things like nuts and bolts and little tiny inlets for engine intake. Those things don't matter. Yeah. So you can see even that this is sped up about double or triple the time. This whole entire thing took about 2 hours to complete in real time. We reduced it down to about 25 minutes. So But this process, this silhouette process, is actually very, very fast. This is something you use, or I use in production when you're in the early stages of a design and you want to nail down as many ideas as you can. Silhouettes work extremely well because even a single day, you could probably, with this process here, could probably do about in 2 hours or 8 hours. So you could about maybe 10 of these a day, maybe even more. Yeah. So very effective, and they look nice to a client for presentation. Right? So it kind of hides the difficulty of them because the presentation looks so nice. So here I'm starting the second one, even though the top one's still very loose because the top one's just very crappy, super airbrushed. But it doesn't matter, the major forms are there. So if you blur your eye, it already reads. Right, and that's what I'm going for. So this guy here is a ginormous cylinder. So we're going to follow the fundamentals of how forms work and use the 1, 2, 3 value range to get those things knocked in. Highlight, core, bounce. Yeah. Darken the background slightly, and that's good enough for the second one. You see, I'm already moving on to the third one. So I just need enough information to turn the form, right? And by turning, I mean you get the major forms, the values in there to make the object appear to be what it is geometrically. So in this case, round, cylindrical. All right, so third ship, same thing. This guy is also sort of cylindrical, kind of bulgy. Getting that guy knocked in. Now you guys could get the final version of these. Just go to my I have a blog which I mentioned last week, but just in case you guys don't know, just go to feinzudesign.blogspot.com and you could find the links to this image. And I also did one more that's not in this tutorial, but follow the same kind of design language, so you can find that image. By the time this video is uploaded, the other one should be up as well. Okay, so now I'm going in and actually start detailing. This is where you take I'm using the chalk brush in this case, and just start painting all the surfaces in. Now we could focus on the finer details instead of just getting the overall. Clean up the edging, clean up all the softness of the airbrush. And this technique here is lassoing. Lasso is a great tool. Lasso allows you to clean up the edges very, very, very fast because it gives you tight edges. Edge control is something that's very hard to do in digital, right? Even in traditional medium, the way we used to do this was with tape. You call masking tape. So if you want a hard, clean edge, you will actually cut out this kind of sticky tape stuff and you type it to your drawing and spray airbrush on it or marker it, and you get this nice clean cut. Right. So in Photoshop, you have lasso, which is the same thing as tape. So you just tape the surfaces you want to paint on, and the other surfaces don't get touched, and resulting in a very clean, machine-like edge. Right. Man-made things tend to have this kind of clean, sharp edges, metallic. Right, so here I'm just painting away. No layers. This is, I think, 1 or 2 layers. That's it. Part of the reason is because one, this process says it's supposed to be fast, right? Fast process, then you think fast. If I have, say, a bit, 10, 20 layers, that sort of defeats the whole purpose of keeping this thing spontaneous and fast. So by keeping everything 1 or 2 layers, you're sort of almost forced to work fast because any kind of mistakes is too late. You're sort of built into the whole thing. So you let that kind of thing run, and the result actually is kind of fluid. You get a kind of a very handmade look versus a very, very tight Photoshop rendering that could perhaps look CG. And depending on what look you're going for, sometimes clients want that, but sometimes for a initial concept stage, you want your stuff to have a looseness. In fact, many of us work hard to try to achieve a looseness, even though it could take you 20 hours, you still want the end result to look like something that took 2 hours, right? So here I'm just airbrushing some highlights, some white on there to get the full range of values going. The silhouette is black, and we could push that black all the way to full range. So using 0 all the way to 255 in terms of the value range, right? If you want to simplify that down, you could say 0 is black and 10 is white. We're trying to use the full range. So you got 6, 5, 7s, all that kind of value range in it. And that makes the image very comfortable for the eye. So I go back and forth just like the environment painting from last week, back and forth, flip the canvas. So certain shapes are hard to draw in Photoshop. So by flipping the canvas, it's actually easier. At the same time, it allows you to check the drawing to see that if it looks correct or not. So you can see this image here is just almost done. It's very, very quick. That's why this technique works well. And look at this thing actually looks like a bird head, for example, right? So this works for anything. So if this is a dragon head, for example, you could use the exact same silhouette technique and draw the rest of the body, draw the environment with it, and just render the same style as I'm doing it now. So it's a very unique technique that's, I think, quite used often in the entertainment industry by a lot of people. All right, so this just tutorial showing you guys a little bit of how we go about doing that. Okay, technical wise, nothing really special, just all default stuff. Again, the canvas is about 7,000 pixels wide, I believe, something around there. Painted with all default brush, two brush only in this entire tutorial, which is the soft airbrush to start, and then the default kind of chalky brush for everything else, and everything else is black and white. Yeah. So here you can see I'm defining the cockpit, the little air intakes, trying to emulate a little bit of stuff that exists on this world, like World War II airplanes or fighter jets, right? Even though these things are alien, you still want the audience to identify with it. Like any Hollywood film or major video game, you're gonna find the stuff that you can identify with are usually those games that tend to do quite well. When something is so far removed, you're gonna lose the audience. Right? So this alien, they might not even need air intakes. I mean, they're so advanced. Why do they need a combustible engine, right? It should be some fusion thing. However, that stuff is hard to show off. It's hard to show, hey, this thing is using some kind of technology that it's 10 million years in the future. That you can't relate to it. It's kind of like showing an ant a nuclear power plant. The ant's not gonna know what the heck they're looking at. Do you know what I'm saying? But if you show an ant a piece of branch or something, they could relate. Similar kind of train of thought, right? Of course, that's being extremely exaggerated, but design has to do with relations, with understanding of things that your audience already know. Right. I think I mentioned that before, like a car or a sniper rifle. You know, a sniper rifle, no matter what game you're playing, it always has a scope on it, and it's always long with a barrel, right? You're not gonna find. I don't think there's any game that really breaks that rule, because when a gamer sees that, they're gonna know, oh, that's a sniper rifle, and the pistol is kind of small with a little handle, and then the assault rifle is kind of medium with a heavy bulk clip. You know, it's like every video game, no matter how high tech you get, from Halo to Mass Effect or whatever, they all follow that. It's because it's trying to get the audience to understand. So in this case, the top one that we finished is a scout. So it looks very fast, it's aggressive. This middle one is still fast, but it's a little bit slower than the top one. However, it's much more bulkier. It's got armor. Perhaps it's got more, carry more weapons on board. Right. So to power something this huge, we need a bigger engine. So here I'm emulating sort of a P-51 Mustang type of layout, which you got that engine right in front of the pilot, and it has all these cylinders sticking out. So you see me putting that design element into this right now that I'm painting. Right. So the cockpit is right there. So even though these are aliens, they still sit like a human being. The cockpit's in the back, the engine's in the front, and the entire spaceship has a forward arrow shape to it to suggest forward movement. So those are just basics of design thinking. Okay. So here, continue painting in details. At this stage, actually, the most difficult, just like the landscape painting we did last week, the most difficult part of this stuff is always the first 5-10 minutes. Is what the heck do you draw? That, at least for me, is always the hard part of the job. For rendering techniques, these things, you'll always get better at them over time. The more you draw, the more time you spend in the industry, the better you will get as far as the technical part itself goes, the drawing part. Right? So if you haven't drawn spaceships a lot, you draw them for 10 years, you definitely get better at it. But, so all of us, we could constantly improve our skill in that area. But design is one of those things that are very, very difficult. No matter how many years you are in the business, you always still have to start from scratch. Every time you design, even though you might be fast at it, you still have to think, okay, how do I make this look different? So it's not something from Final Fantasy or something from Halo Reach or something like that, because our job is to constantly create something new. Yet at the same time, like I mentioned just a few seconds ago, at the same time, allow the audience to relate to it. That is one of the hardest part, I think, for any designer to do. Especially in entertainment where you're not restricted by technology, right? Because in the real world, at least you have engineering and those kind of things, in a certain way, restricted design. Working in entertainment, you're basically unrestricted, so your clients are expecting big things from you, because they're not saying, hey, you got to make sure the engine fits into this thing or whatever. There's no restrictions. You can do whatever heck you want. So actually, that makes it much, much harder in terms of design. Right. So in the case like this, I'm trying to do a little spaceship, and there's probably millions of drawings of spaceships up to this point, right? So, but I still want to make it a little bit different, make it unique, have its own design language, have its own world. That's the goal of, I think, most designers out there, what we try to achieve. But at the same time, it still looks like a fighter jet. It still has fins. It still has a forward thrust to allow the audience to associate. Yeah. Because different to be different is not sometimes good. I can make a spaceship made out of black tar and dripping tar, and little spikes are sticking out of it or something. You could do that, but it's very hard to sell. So that's the I think if you ask most designers what the most difficult part of the job is, they'll tell you is the initial staring at a blank piece of canvas. And you have a deadline in a few hours. That's the most difficult part. The drawing and the rendering, that stuff just takes time. You'll get better at it as you go. Yeah. So especially as we have so many students and that kind of thing, younger audience looking at these videos, keep that stuff in mind. The more you draw, the better you will get. But definitely spend a lot of time also on the subject of design and understanding. Right. I'm not teaching you guys art here. This has nothing to do with art. This all the stuff I'm showing you guys. We use art as a process, but the end result is to showcase a design. And so therefore, if you don't have good design, showcasing that doesn't really do anything. Clients not going to pay you. They're not going to hire you. Clients are looking for things that can make them products. Yeah. So it's all about selling the idea through the use of art techniques, but the final focus is the product itself. Okay. So we do get some questions since this is all these ships are going to basically repeat. The process is exactly the same for all three of them. So as this runs, I just talk about some of the more general things that maybe try to answer some of the questions you guys have been asking. So one of them is, for example, is the color palette I use. Can I upload those somewhere? The thing is, those color palettes, one, they're made by myself over many, many years. So in a way, they're kind of material that benefits me in terms of working. So to give that stuff away is actually giving away a little bit of your own pipeline, right? So that's not a good thing. But the other thing is that getting your hands on that actually is not going to help anybody because I know exactly how to rearrange or arrange in a certain order. For example, I know that if I use this red, I count 2 blocks in and 3 to the left. There's a palette that works really well with the red. But then someone using my palette will not know that. Same thing with brushes. I actually tried other people's brush before. Like you work in an art department, sometimes you share a brush. And when I get my hands on theirs, I don't know how to use it. I don't know why they even made that brush in the first place because that stuff is all personal. So meanwhile, the guy using that brush is making it to do great things. Meanwhile, I'm using it going, man, this thing sucks. I don't get it. It makes terrible forms because everyone has different usages. Perhaps he uses it for showcasing metal on or skin texture or something. I don't know why it was made in the first place. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of fun to experiment with it, but definitely I think when it comes to color palettes, brushes, make your own so you know how it works. Okay. So the second guy here is almost done. You can see the P51 engine intake or outtake, whatever, the exhaust pipes. Right? Still trying to emulate that kind of old school stuff. Get that energy going. So you can almost feel the power in that engine. It's exposed and it's quite aggressive. And this ship is very forward heavy because it's got a very long nose. It's about 2/3 of this entire aircraft is a nose. Right? So it's definitely a very powerful thing because if this is a World War II plane, all that stuff will be engine. Right, making it very fast, or powerful at least. Might not be fast, but could definitely carry a lot of weight. Okay, so let's go back to some more the other questions as far as I could think of. As far as computer spec, we still get a lot of questions on the computer stuff. So in today's world, it's very cheap. So just invest in a fast computer. Even my laptop at this point, it was good about 2 years ago, but even now it starts to slow down because as you get faster computers, you tend to work in higher resolutions because it allows you to. But then that's a catch-22 because the higher the resolution, the slower it's going to get. So I'm actually in need of an upgrade to my laptop pretty soon. Maybe sometime this year I'll get another one. But you just need a fast machine, fast CPU, and a lot of RAM. Those are the main two things you need. Video RAM is good. Video cards these days are cheap. So get yourself something that has a gig of video RAM. It should be plenty. Right? But RAM, physical system RAM is still the most important because Photoshop spits those into memory. So if you load an image that's quite big, it's all going to go into RAM first. So if you only have 2 gigs or 3, 4 gigs available, your machine's going to chug. So this machine here has quite a bit of RAM. My home machine one has a lot. That thing's got 12 gigs, and because it's 64-bit, no matter what image I load. Last night I was working with an image that is 4 gigs size because it's a big print for a thing we're working on. So that's a humongous file at 4 gigs. The physical size the RAM is using is probably double or triple. So, but on the machine it's completely smooth. You can use it, zoom in, zoom out. There's no delay. So that's the advantage of a good machine. So definitely invest in it. And this is a good point to mention investment. I think I talked about that before. Equipment, books. Whatever you want to buy to help you get better at this kind of stuff, as long as you use it, it becomes an investment, not something you just waste your money on. Right? Even school, take some courses at your local school, whatever, or go to a college and take a course. All those things are investment. It's to build your own career. The way I like to look at stuff is you live only once, and if you want to do something, go do it. You know what I'm saying? If it's going to cost you money, but if you think that's worth it, For example, someone told you, hey, it might cost you 100K to do this thing and get this equipment and learn these classes and whatever. You're like, oh man, that's a lot of money. But you think, okay, but for that money, for the rest of your life, from age 25 and onwards, you're going to be a concept designer, always working in the entertainment industry for the rest of your life and be rewarded with huge salaries, lots of perks. That is an investment a lot of people would take. But that's a risk, right? The risk is in your hands, because if you don't do well, then obviously that stuff is thrown away. But for a lot of us, I think we see that risk as something that we're willing to take. So because the end result, you live once, you cannot switch careers so many times in your life. You could do it maybe a few times, but essentially this kind of stuff we all started very young. I got into this business very early. Probably when I think I was 18 and a half, 19 when I got my first professional job, because early on I knew what I wanted to do, so I forced myself to invest in that kind of stuff. I went to a school that was very expensive as well, and I just worked part-time as well as getting grants and scholarships from anywhere I could find to afford it. So I ended up owing quite a bit of money, obviously. But the thing is, I think my first job alone paid off everything within a few months. So that's the kind of thing that if you work hard, things tend to work out pretty well. So back to the computer equipment, that's why we started this conversation. Expensive computers are worth the price if you can use it to produce good work. So, get yourself probably a $5,000-$6,000 desktop will be plenty for many, many years, because they tend to be quite expensive if you want to go for the high-end RAM and the GTX 580s or ATI, whatever you want to use. They're not cheap, but they'll make working a breeze, because I hate delays when I work. I like it when I, use a brush, there's no delays, no weird feedback, it's just smooth as silk, and that's the way. Even this laptop here, these paintings, they're chugging slightly. So anyways, this painting is almost coming to an end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to touch all these up a little bit, and I'll show you guys what that look like. But in the meantime, I'm still working on this. So make sure you guys go to the blog to download the high res version of this, so you guys can see what the final result looks like. It's much sharper than the YouTube version. And also grab the new one I just did today, which is part of the same package. And continue to ask you questions. I try to get to them every Friday or so when I have some downtime. This week has been quite busy with I've been involved in a lot of different projects, so I haven't had time. But I did answer some of you guys' questions. Right? Or email us at our contact@FCD School. That's fine as well. So they get forwarded to me if the question is relevant. Yeah. But generally we avoid all questions like, can we have your brush, or can we have your color palette, or can we have your PSD files, or can we have basically anything, can I have something kind of stuff we kind of ignore. That's generally is not even that professional to ask for those kind of things, because make your own. That's part of the professional thing. You don't go to a job and go, can you make someone else do my work? That's not how it is. I'm saying it's all part of the personality trait of a professional, to go out there and find your own research material, to do your own collection of color palettes and brushes. That's part of the entire process. There's no secret in this business. Having a brush or having a color palette is not going to make you better or make you faster. It's the same. Okay. So this last guy here, let's go back to the design here, is the bomber version, or some kind of like a P-47 or something like that in World War II. It's a fighter, but very heavily armored, huge engines, different technology. So even though it's alien, it's still pretty much earthbound in terms of its technology reach. Earthbound in terms of recognition, right? They might have high technology, but we want the audience to know that this guy's a little slower, a little bulkier. Okay. And the reason why we work in black and white, because I think I mentioned this many, many times already, we're working with value. Value is how the human eye sees. Value is light, how intense the light is reaching your eye. Color is very secondary to the way we see, right? Just like you wear sunglasses or some kind of glasses that take colors out, you can still function perfectly fine in this world, right? Color does not make you see. It's the intensity of light that reaches your eyeballs that makes you see. So when you work in black and white, you kind of get rid of a difficult layer, which is the color layer, and work purely with the forms. And once the forms are defined, we could bring it into color very, very easily, especially for something like this. So you'll see that happening in a few minutes here as we wrap this thing up. Right now I'm just doing edge control, all the kind of early silhouette, dirty stuff that it's all cleaned up now. Make it very, very clean. Tiny details, but not so much detail that it overwhelms this drawing. I don't like super detailed things. I think it kills the kind of spontaneous nature of the concept art. So you just do enough to get the overall feel right, and then if your client want it, then you could detail it all you want. But this demonstration here, this is concept stuff. This is early conceptualization where you try to do quality and quantity at the same time, so there's going to be a fine balance, right? So this is still a look that looks fairly finished, but done in a very fast manner, right? We're talking about 2 hours here for these. So in a day, again, you could produce quite a bit of these things. So your clients will be quite happy, and it doesn't look like you're being lazy on the project. It still looks very, very presentable. And any of these could be taken and rendered out. You could spend a whole day on just a single one and bring it to a very nice finish. Okay. So this is sort of coming to an end. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Next week, I have no idea what I'm working on yet for Design Cinema, but maybe something else. Maybe going back to painting, maybe some character or something. It's been a while since I think I've done a character one. So this is done. So I'll switch over now to show you guys what the final result is, in which I touched up and added some splashes of color. But all that is a color tint. That's all. All right. So it's very simple. So I'll zoom in here so you guys could see here. Okay, so here is the final result. So I just again added some color tint and put some tiger stripes or something like that to show to make them a little bit more aggressive, like a fighter. And that's about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode, and I will see you guys in the next episode. All right, bye bye.